Oh, dear, 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 dear. Why are you making me tremble so? This is supposed to be a happy time.
Hello and welcome to the Euro What, episode number 154 for the week of April 25th, 2022. I'm Mike McComb, and I'm joined today by Ben Smith. Hey, Ben.
Hey, Mike.
And our special guest, Ned Raggett. Hey, Ned.
Hello.
We are a group of Americans trying to make sense of the Eurovision Song Contest. And this week, we'll be finishing up our coverage of the second semifinal. Welcome back to the show, Ned.
It is great to be back. Third year in a row. It's tradition now. It surely is. It must be.
How has your Eurovision season been going?
It's very much like what happened last year, where it's one of those things where I know everything is happening, but so many other things are happening that I just basically rely on you guys to sort of give me a sense of what is happening. And I just sort of like, okay, all right, and then catch things up. And I think I only got around to a proper listen of like all the entries the other week before I went on vacation, if I remember right. And it was one of those cases where I was like, okay, bring the madness, bring it all in. And as you might have seen from my Patreon post yesterday, I think it was when the Albania video hit, I was like going, my brain's in another place. What happened here?
Yeah. And that is song number one on the list.
Yes.
I mean, I had to. It's like, yeah, it's Eurovision season time. I can feel the love.
Yes. The wig of weaves is a sight
that
to
and the
behold.
boning. All the boning.
Yes.
Have there been any songs that have jumped out for you as ones to keep an eye on?
I also mentioned this in my post yesterday, but if there's one I'd love to see win, and I have no idea if it will, but oh man, Serbia's entry, easy, hands down. That hits my, yes, goth art madness. give to me.
Yes.
Yes. Just on a conceptual level, what it's executing is just fantastic. The Barcelona pre-party performance where I'm just like, oh man, they've added another layer and it's working. Let's go.
Ooh, that's going to be my catch-up work this afternoon, as it were, is going to be like, okay, I need to see those videos. So I have an afternoon. I'll pack that in. I'll finally do that now. So I'm gearing myself up. So
excellent. Yeah, you are in for a lot of treats, I think. Like this season started out a little slow, but it is coming together quite nicely. So
good. I look forward to these next few weeks of it all happening.
Yes.
Again.
Excellent. So why don't we hop in with finishing up the second semifinal?
They're gonna find out nobody's gonna like it. We get away. Need you to stay. Hola mi bebé. Hola mi bebé. Llámame, llámame. Llámame, llámame. Hola mi bebé. Hola mi bebé. Llámame, 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 llámame. Hola, mi bebé.
So the last six entries will begin with Romania and Urs with the song Llámame. Urs won Selecția Națională, which is Romania's national selection. He has an interesting background. Urs was a dancer on Romania's version of The Voice and Romania's Got Talent. He's part of the kind of dance core for those two shows. He was also in the boy band Shot in 2015. He was in that group for a couple of years, and he launched his own solo career in 2020. And at that time, he expressed interest in representing Romania at Eurovision, so his dream is coming true. Ned, what do you think of this entry?
And here's the thing. I like it, but one of my favorite bands of all time from their key reign, I suppose, was the early 90s, was Army of Lovers. This is like if Army of Lovers was one lover. It needs a trio to work in some respects. And it's one of those cases where I think the way I described it was he's agreeably camp. I like hers much more than, shall we say, Israel's entry, aka this is a perfect song for a RuPaul's Drag Race episode and nothing else. So, this actually works a bit more for me. I'm a little bemused by the Spanish. I'm wondering, is this a salute to a fellow romance language from Romania? Who knows? Latin roots, game recognized game. But having said that, why not? It beats out just doing English all the time. In terms of staging, I actually liked it a little more on the second view through of the final performance that I saw. Nothing is screaming out at me as being truly special. At the same time, it works. And as a result, it's more like, okay, the verse sparkler staging that they've got going on, the hint of folk music that comes with that one little bit line, and it actually gears up after the first chorus, but that's a bit of a problem, and there are other songs that we're going to talk about. It doesn't gear up until after the first chorus. You shouldn't be leaving a song a little dead at the start.
Right.
But having said that, if it goes through, that's fine. I'm not going to complain. That's kind of where I am on it.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibe of the second semifinal, where it's just like, yeah, sure, why not? But yeah, Ben, what do you think of this one?
I keep trying to connect with this one. And there's just something that feels generic about it to me. Like, it's just like very late 90s, early 2000s Latin pop. If you told me that this was a deep cut on like a Ricky Martin or Enrique Iglesias album, I would believe you. It's fine and it's competent, but it doesn't stand out to me. And I feel like there are other things kind of surrounding it in the lineup that are going to just kind of blow it out of the water.
And frankly, it's actually going to weirdly benefit by the fact that most of the rest of what follows is, it's a bit of a slow stretch that comes at the end here. But we'll get to that. It's one of those cases where, points for trying, hooray, thumbs up. It's the type of thing that it's nice to see. But that's kind of the problem. If something is only nice to see and nice to listen to, then is it really sending you? Is it truly memorable for being, completely crazy? No. And that's an issue.
Romania has been trying a lot of things in the last few years because, they used to be just a reliable presence in the final, and now they've just sort of are in, a wilderness period where they're just like, what do we do?
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with this song, where I feel like I'm kind of grading it on a curve, because the last song that Romania qualified with was Yodel It. that just seems wrong somehow.
It does.
And I loved Yodel It, but I think Romania has sent songs of slightly more quality than that and have not been rewarded for that. I enjoy this one, and I think maybe it is because it is tapping into that late 90s, early 2000s space when that was my coming of age period. So it's like, I don't know, kind of tapping those sort of memory buttons for me.
I was going to say, the weird sense memory that it's tapping for me beyond sort of those late 90s vibes is this is the exact kind of song that gets played all the time at MIT's Square Dancing Club. Is anything with a 4 to the floor beat that is not specifically country and western, they will play, but it's all stuff from 10 years ago. It's nothing current. Moves like Jagger, or a bunch of Jennifer Lopez stuff from her first album, of just things that have that solid 4/4 beat because it's good for calling.
Okay, I have a lot of follow-up questions about square dancing clubs, but I don't want this to get derailed.
Thank you. I wasn't too sure what to say here. And I took square dancing for my sins in third grade, or rather, I was forced to take it, and I notably hated it. So you were bringing back bad memories. No, thank you, man. No.
Also, square dancing did not jump to mind when I've heard this track, and I was looping these songs all morning in preparation for today, and not one square dance was happening in my apartment. Speaking of the dancing part of it, at the national final, I thought that was a really good national final performance, and I think it's going to be a hint of what we're going to see on the Eurovision stage. And the fact that he has a background as a dancer for the big TV production shows, I don't recall that being a bullet point on the resume of most Eurovision acts. So I think he's going to bring a perspective to the competition that is going to be a little bit different. So I'm just kind of curious to see how it's going to play out. I am hopeful for this entry. I don't think it's going to win the contest overall, but I think this may help Romania get out of its wilderness period, or at least, it's kind of the same boat that the UK is in, where it's just, okay, 1 point is more than the 0 points you got last year. So any success is going to be a big success. And I think this song has the potential of delivering that.
Following that in the lineup is Ochman and River. Ochman was the winner of this year's Polish Eurovision selection. Tubie serca a Europie, Wybieramy hira na Eurowizja.
Round of applause, Ben. Round of applause.
Yeah, well done. Yeah, you beat me out. Well,
Stuck the landing. All of that means the heart of Europe beats here. We choose a hit for Eurovision.
Wow.
Yeah. That's too many words for a title.
That's more poetic than the American Song Contest. Oh, I'm kidding. Anyway.
I'm kind of sad they made that very difficult to watch, even if you had a VPN, just because he's born in Massachusetts, and I would have loved to see the moment of just the usual spiel be just like Polish, Massachusetts, Polish.
Yes.
So he's born in Massachusetts. He took up musical theater in high school in Maryland and then has studied music in Poland since then. He won The Voice of Poland in 2020, where his coach was Michael Szpak, who was the Polish representative in 2016, where they did very well. He's not the only one this year that has a connection to The Voice, where the coach was a Eurovision person who did well. So Ned, what do you make of this one?
My notes began, the all caps tastefulness and all caps sorrow. And that's what I was getting from this. I said to myself, this is still the deep curse of Coldplay and other Eurovision ballads following Coldplay playing out. And I mean this with love. And it's not just that, but, on the one hand, do I expect these kind of ballads these days? Why, yes, I do. I'm almost inured to them. You could say I'm, vaccinated against them. But at the same time, oh my goodness, you've got to do a little more. There's plenty technically right about this performance. The guy can clearly sing. He's had the training. Well done. And I think like all the other entries, the actual performer is listed as a co-writer for all these entries we're doing. Yeah, that's, notable. Who knows what exactly was contributed, but still. And it's a case where the part of the problem here is not merely some of the odd bits of it lyrically, although in a way it can be, because let's put it this way, as I thought to myself, I'm glad you're taking your body to the river and not someone else's body. Yeah. and I certainly would hope you'd want to be buried in your own skin rather than someone else's. Yeah. Give us the Midsummer vibes, please. But, the thing is, the video itself should lead more into the horror vibes, and the video is not helping. I'm sorry, I have an issue with this video. I'm kind of over, wandering tastefully around the mansion and reflecting on your past. I think we've had enough of that. This is a cliche that has been leaned into 8 million times, and it's sort of like, oh, another one. Is all of Europe filled with nothing but ritzy Mansons of a certain age to wander around and be melancholic in?
As someone who's been watching both the Belgian and Dutch seasons of The Mole lately, they do have a lot of those. Just every week, there's 3 challenges where part of it is wander around this old monastery.
But there are other bits too. Unlike, say, our previous entry, who was a different thing, different sort of training and work for TV. This person maybe is more a singer. So I wouldn't necessarily call him the best actor. And my note here for the videos, I like how he looks a bit confused when he walks into the first room. What am I doing here? I appreciate that. I'm okay. I guess I should do this now. And also the bit where it builds up to taking off a veil to see someone, and the reaction of that person is basically, huh? So again, this video is doing the song no favors. I'm sorry. I have a thing. Having said that, getting back to some technical stuff. Nice falsetto on the bridge. The orchestration is good there too. You almost have to wait for that to happen, but it's one of those cases that if you're going to go this route, at least sell that point. And they did, and he did. So credit to the guy. And my final thought is that I tried to step outside myself and go, this probably will go further than I'm guessing or that I would expect it to. That's my guess on it. I assume it'll float through into out of this range, but again, we're entering a sort of strange patch here, so I really don't know. But I think it'll go through.
I can't remember which song we were talking about where, Ben, you had mentioned that you can have all of the technical components in a skating routine, but you've got to do something artsy to connect all of the jumps.
Yes.
That has been sticking in my mind when thinking about this song. I think it is an excellent vocal showcase for Ochman, but yeah, the song is really a nothing burger. I think part of it is river as a metaphor in song. It never does anything for me.
It's like Joni Mitchell did it 50 years ago. We can move on.
Right. Lyrically, it's what is the story here? It really does feel like a refrigerator magnet poetry set. These things rhyme. They're kind of sentiments, but like I don't see what the connective tissue is between all these elements. And like the overall performance of it, speaking of Romania, is reminding me a lot of Cesar's It's My Life, where it's just like very operatic, but what is going on here? I think on the technical side of things, he's going to do very well, and like will probably do well in the audience vote too. I think this could end up being a case of it's going to get a lot of 5s, 6s, and 7s, but that's going to end up adding up. I think he's going to do better than I'm expecting or think that it should, but it's near the top of the bookies table, and I think they may be onto something, even though this is something that's like, not really for me. Eurovision works that way sometimes. So
yeah. Yes, it does.
Well, and I think the last couple of things that Poland has sent through selection processes, so this and then Alicia a couple years ago before COVID shut everything down, are very similar songs. A lot of technical elements performed well that were, if you look at the songs, they're just nothing. Just a lot of very interesting technical vocal showcases where lyrically it's just, we took the last 5 years of Eurovision winners and ran them through a blender. We have water metaphors. We have something that sounds like arcade at like 1.2 times speed to remind you of what won a couple years ago. And then weirdly, I get traces of Lana Del Rey's Blue Jeans thrown into the mix because sure, why not? It's proficiently done, and I completely agree that it's going to like quietly get like a bunch of 4s, 5s, and 6s and probably get through and do surprisingly well, but it doesn't scream winner to me, especially because it's copying a lot of things that have already won, and we tend to look for some level of something that feels different compared to the most recent years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like why would anybody want another arcade? I mean, I didn't want the first one, but that's just me. But like on the whole, it's just like why do we want this song again?
And also, it's a small point coming after another, coiffed, short bearded guy. It's sort of like, these people blend into each other at a certain point. It's like, please let the wardrobes be distinct. That's all I ask, because otherwise I won't know who I'm looking at.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be, that is an interesting point.
Wearing national colors and on a flag around you or something. That way I can tell you apart. It's like, oh, okay, yeah. it's this one.
Nothing feels the same. The fear won't lead you anyway. The battle for the life is bigger than you know. To act so selfishly is unforgivable. The air is what they need. The air is what they breathe. They'll die without it. It's unforgivable.
Next in the lineup comes from Montenegro, who are returning to the competition after taking a few years off. And their artist is Vladana with her song Breathe. Vladana was an internal selection. She studied music theory, opera, and journalism. She tried to represent Serbia-Montenegro back in 2005 and 2006, back when Serbia-Montenegro was a thing. Since then, she's released a couple of albums, couple singles, and launched an online fashion magazine called Civiluk back in 2015, which is kind of taking her out of music a little bit. This is her first track in quite a few years.
As someone who's been watching the pre-parties, it makes sense that she also runs an online fashion magazine because every single pre-party she has shown up with just sort of these... I was about to say over the top, and that feels wrong, but just sort of these very kind of spacey looks where I had been kind of concerned that it was going to be all about the look for the final performance, which I don't think this song needs. Like, the song is a solid return for Montenegro. I was looking through their history when it first came out, and this is the sort of thing that gets them through to the final, so it makes sense that if they're coming back and they want to do well, they're going to send something like Knez's entry. We were kind of missing like a good Balkan ballad, and this is, at least instrumentation-wise, a solid one for me, and she performs it well.
Yeah, I would agree. It's one of those things that learning about a bit more about the song that she says draws to, at least in some part lyrically, on some sort of family trauma or something that happened in the previous year. I'm not going to snark on that. We all process things in our own way, and if that's part of the roots of the song, hey, a salute. My issue was honestly less with the song, which I agree, its big advantage over River is the fact that there's actual variety in the song. It changes up a bit as it goes. There's playing around with the different arrangements, different elements. It's like, okay, good. This is not just simply a all the way through with maybe an interesting bridge. The follow away into vocals on the bridge when the music pulls back a bit is pretty nice. The video is not helping, though, because the video is, as I put it somewhere in my notes, wandering memory mansion crap. Again, like the previous one. One more time. Although I said, but I will salute the video director who is brave enough to fuse ballet lessons with rock quarries or wherever they're filming her at one point. Having said that, she's much more of a presence, easily, with the fashion, this thing. The combination of the headdress and the makeup is distinct. The director is making her do stuff that shouldn't have been done, like the bit where there's the actual breath towards the end of it comes across a little comically as filmed when it works audio-wise. And then there's also the fact that the running theme of everything is like, people with skin problems. Moisturizer. It'll keep you from falling apart. But again, this is the video stuff.
The video is very Doctor Who episode.
This is a very good comparison, yes. So I'll buy that. I'll go with that. The song is solid. I feel much more kindly to this than I do to Ochman and River. So it's a step up. I think its placement of these two songs next to each other, and again, the next couple songs really is everything's going to sort of fall into a morass of contemplation as opposed to energy. But I like it. I like it well enough, and I'd be interested. I could see it going farther, and I actually would want to root for this one going farther in comparison to some of the other ballads out there.
Structuring this semifinal in particular had to have been tricky. The halves are determined by the draw, so when you have something like these three ballads, there may not be another good, just due to the draw, there may not be a better way to spread them out.
Especially coming at the end of the semifinal, too. We may have a case where some of these things may actually be a little more stuck in people's memory because it's so near the end of it. At the same time, I can see people starting to go like, checking their watch or going like, how many more left? And things like that. And that might not help either. So again, maybe the staging will change it around. I have no idea, but we'll see.
I agree that this is an excellent return entry for Montenegro. It really feels like it would have done extremely well, like back in the mid part of the last decade. Whereas now, I don't know, like it feels a little dated because of that. But I like that there is an actual story to this song. Like you can tell that there is a personal component to this. And it's kind of wild that this is one of the only songs this year to like explicitly be about COVID or COVID related topics. Like, I don't think it's like trying to cash in on that because that is just ghoulish, but like it feels like it is a genuine reflection on where things are right now. Which I don't know. Like, I think one of the keys to success of Eurovision is having a sort of timelessness quality about it. And I don't know if this one may end up being a little too much of a time capsule of where we are right now in 2022. But I like this one. And I think she's an interesting personality, and I think she's going to have an amazing look. The fashion background is definitely going to pay off here. This is another one that I am hopeful for, just because it's like, I want Montenegro to do well. Like they've always struggled at Eurovision. And I think this is a worthy entry to get some praise.
My mind, but you're still like a nightmare, and I close my eyes. I'm gonna miss you now. Promise I won't miss you now. I'm gonna break through now. I'll never hate you, never chase you. I'm gonna miss you now. Promise I won't miss you now. I'm gonna break through now. I'll never hate you, never chase you.
Belgium's entry this year, Jeremie Makiese's Miss You. Jeremie was an internal selection. He won The Voice of Belgium in 2021, where he was coached by Beverly Joe Scott, who co-wrote Rhythm Inside for Loic Notet, their entry a few years ago. He studied geology before taking a break to pursue music and sport. Mike, what are your thoughts on this one?
Okay. I think...
well.
Yeah, like, I think this one has incredibly high staging potential. I think they have a lot of options that they can work with, and if they stage this well, they could do rather well. If it's just kind of basic staging or disappointing staging, that's going to hurt this track even more. This song is just so disjointed, and it feels like there's just something missing to kind of hold it all together, and I just don't know how to engage with this one. It feels like it's several drafts trying to come together to form a final project, and it's really not working for me. And it's kind of going into that vocal showcase, hitting all the technical elements, but nothing really artsy to string it all together. I want to be supportive of Belgium, but this one's just not working for me.
I'm kind of where Mike is, maybe a hair more positive, but it's kind of by degrees. One of my notes here was, this is self-tortured charisma, but I'll take it over the other himbos doing self-tortured charisma.
What is it with Belgium and the himbos? Because that was an issue last year too.
Yeah. So there was that. I'm sort of thinking, okay, is this kind of post-Drake, post The Weeknd-y to a degree? Not really, but I can sort of see it existing in that space. The point about the drafts, I mean, I like the strings. I'm a sucker for them when done well. These are done pretty well. His fluttering falsetto is perfectly fine. The beats are not there for me. They're serviceable, but it's not clicking. It's nothing special offhand. Your point about the staging is very good. My favorite bit in terms of that would be the cars, the trucks, and the bros. Not the dancing ones, the ones that are just staring at him.
Yeah.
Make that part of the staging. Just have 4 guys on stages going, yeah, looking at him, directing to absolutely nothing else. That would be, sort of like, sure, I want to do that. The video, again, is a little weird at points. The end implies that he's missing himself. Don't we all have those days? This is a Moon Knight echo without people knowing it. Who knows? But, it's just sort of like, that was an odd touch that is sort of like, oh, okay. And, but again, I don't think they'll be doing that in the staging. I think it'll be something else. I encourage the guy. Seems like he's sort of stumbled into a career without expecting it on maybe 2 levels. If he's also still doing apparently he's a goalkeeper in a football league thing over there, which good on you. So, singing footballer. Hey, if Rod Stewart can do it, why not this guy? I encourage and I would like to see what they do, and maybe we'll be surprised. But I'm kind of with Mike. There's something that doesn't quite fully connect when it could or how it should, and it's a little hard to put one's finger on.
This feels like the sort of song that comes out of a voice winner, where it's maybe written with like 2 or 3 people in mind, and this is the guy who ultimately it went to. But yeah, like it just feels weirdly disjointed. This one always feels like it should stick in my head more than it actually does. And he's a very proficient performer. At the various pre-parties, like he has shown up, and like his vocals have been very good. And I have seen various people online sort of saying, "Oh, this one could be a secret jury winner." I'm like, can it? Because I don't necessarily see that.
It's a song I think actually could exist away from Eurovision, which I mean as a compliment. It's not to denigrate Eurovision, but sometimes you think of songs that are clearly only for Eurovision. This one actually could exist in its own right, I think. But having said that, it's still not entirely there. And yeah, I think we've all sort of identified that there's something going on here where we all the elements are there, certainly. He seems perfectly charismatic, I have to say, so that certainly does help. Frankly, the first thing I saw when I saw is how he's chosen to dye his hair was like, whoa, flashbacks to Demolition Man and Wesley Snipes' hairstyle there. So that shows you how old I am, though, I should note. So,
but when you said that, I immediately got the visuals.
Yep, there you go. Yeah, have staging be some guy dressed as Stallone in that movie. Come on, let's go all out. But that's it. But, he wears it perfectly well. It's one of those things I sort of like, not knowing anything about the guy, I'm like, I'm rooting for you, but maybe if there was another song, I'd really be rooting for you. That's kind of where it comes down.
Maybe you're right, I'll find someone else. You say it isn't me, but when did that ever help? Hold me closer, although you leave before the sunrise. Might be bleeding, but don't you mind, I'll be fine. Oh, it kills me. At the wrong time, but until the sunrise, hold tight, maybe it happened too fast.
Next in the set comes from Sweden. It's Cornelia Jakobs and Hold Me Closer. Cornelia won Melodifestivalen, and way back in 2008, she auditioned for Swedish Idol, and she garnered press because the judges mocked her during her audition, and yeah, it was not a good look for really anybody. But in looking up that incident, I didn't realize how much of this year's Melfest was a 2008 Swedish Idol reunion. That was the season that Robbie Benston competed and finished in 3rd. Anna Bergendahl was on that season and finished in 5th. And Anders Bagge, who was the runner-up at Melfest, was one of the judges on the panel of that season. So Yeah, kind of awkward. I got the sense that there was tension during Melfest, but I did not realize that this was maybe the primary source of that tension. Ben, I know you are quite bullish on this song. Is that still holding true?
That is still the case on my end. Of the various things that feel like they have winter vibes, this still has winter vibes to me. Watching chatter on the Eurovision Twitter side of things, like this seems to be the one that everybody is excited about and rooting for. I haven't checked the bookies stuff, but I think it's still hanging around the top there up with Ukraine. Sweden has had a few years where like they have rightly been highly praised by the judges who tend to be music industry people who know the mechanics of pop and see what Sweden is doing and like that. And then just sort of roundly rejected by the actual televoters who are just like, Sweden is on autopilot, and this feels like they are actually doing something different. There is a raspiness to her vocals that reminds me of Ida Maria, who I liked her first album from around, I think, 2008, 2009. And then she popped up in the Norwegian selection randomly a few years ago and had a very different poppy side to her, where there's like a real sense of emotion, and I like the way that the synth builds in this, and just sort of the way that they've structured this performance very simply just really stands out to me. I think Sweden has staged this well, and they've built something that can travel well to the Eurovision stage. And instead of doing that thing that they love to do, where they just sort of like essentially bring their own entire stage, they're kind of doing that with this, but it's in a much simpler way where they're not like completely making a music video on stage. I think this one is one of the entries that's vying for the win this year.
In my case, it took a while. Of this bunch we've been talking about, this is definitely in my higher tier. But the first time through, I wasn't quite there. Second time through, I'm like, okay, all right, I get it. And probably further listens will sort of bump it up. So in that, I think it'll sail through to the finals easy. In that, it may win. I'm not quite there yet, but I'll keep it in mind. But the problem for me was that some of the stuff you're praising, Ben, I don't entirely agree with. Not in the sense of, Pistols at Dawn. It's more like, I don't know. The simplicity of the staging argument, it came across as flat to me. Maybe nothing wrong with the stage setup, but maybe she should do more. It wasn't really connecting for me on that level. Well, clearly the crowd, since I was looking at the Melodic Festival and performance, loved it. So I'm like, okay, all right, maybe this is just me. Something that was terribly amusing to me, though, was how the first verse and chorus came across, because I was like, what is this reminding me of? This is making me think of something. I don't know what. And then when the second verse and the beats and the bass started dropping, I'm like, all right, okay, that's good energy. But what was the first thing? What was it when it was all stripped down reminding me of? And then it hit me. Of all things, it reminded me of the Verve's The Drugs Don't Work. And I'm like, I didn't expect to be comparing this song to that. And that is a song that I happen to enjoy in its own overwrought way. But I was thinking, this is not a good idea for Eurovision. So when the beats and bass arrived, I was like, oh, thank God. Because if that had continued, 1997 was a long, long time ago. So, and again, you can make other comparison points, but it was that I was on the verge of thinking, oh my God, did Sweden send something totally lugubrious? So when they didn't, it was like, okay, all right, better. And so that's the thing. So yeah, so it is oddly enough for something clearly calculated to be a big, pop hit. Why wouldn't it be? It's a grower, I think. And I think a third listen, I'll probably like it even more. So it almost helps knowing that going in, as opposed to a first time listen where it had just a moment of utter paranoia, like, no, surely not.
Yeah, I am still amazed that this won Melfest, because it just feels so outside of what Sweden has been doing the last decade. Like, just looking at how Melfest was structured this year, it really felt like everything was stacked against this song doing well at all. So like when she was announced as the first person to advance in her heat and she like collapsed to the floor and was super excited, it's like, oh yeah, there's a reason for that. And I'm sure also all of the like baggage from Idol 2008 was maybe
from seeing Robin
but,
Bengtson in the green room.
Yeah. So it's just like, oh wow, there's a lot more going on here, and just the genuine emotion behind it. And like the raspiness of her voice, I'm really responding to. Like at the Madrid pre-party last weekend, when she was performing this, it was just like, oh, this is really giving me kind of Bonnie Tyler vibes. Not in the
not in the Believe in Me way.
Right, not in that way, and not in the over-the-top, I need a hero sort of way. Something that was more the middle of those two extremes. I am growing more and more fond with this song with each listen. As I mentioned, I was looping these songs all morning in preparation for this, and this was the only, like, by the fifth or sixth loop of this, it was like, okay, Sweden's the only one I want to listen to out of this set. I can't do this anymore. So, yeah, and I think the way that the end of this semifinal is set up, like, Sweden is just head and shoulders above the rest of the songs in this set. I have no doubt that it's going to advance. It doesn't give me, like, personal winning vibes, but if this were to win, I think it's deserved.
Yeah, like, I keep going between, like, 3 or 4 different songs in this entire set of Eurovision songs this year of what I think my personal winner is, but this is one where I would not be mad about it as the actual winner. One other thing that comes to mind for me is the last couple Fridays, they've been doing Eurovision house parties, where they've asked the artists to record, it looks like, their Eurovision song and a cover of their choice, which is great. So far, we've only had one Euphoria. So far. Of course, next week is just going to be the all Euphoria edition. I have cursed it. I'm sorry in advance.
Monkey's paws waving at us. So.
Yeah. In terms of covers, Sheldon Riley from Australia this year, instead of covering like a past song, covered this song. Is already being covered by other Eurovision artists, which that also feels like, oh, okay, if the artists like this one too. Weirdly, it didn't work in his voice for me. If you can name a music competition program, he's been on it, so he has a little bit kind of too stage schooly vocals on it. It was a little too clean for me. Like, this is still Swedish pop precision, but like it seems appropriate for Italy that they've done like the whole sprezzatura thing of this very sort of polished sense of actually being kind of rough around the edges. There is a roughness to this song that they have not had in recent years. They've been just like the full Swedish pop machine, and it's done okay. And like, this feels like they are letting their guard down in a way that's interesting.
Yeah, like this is not glossy the way that the last 12 Swedish entries have felt super glossy.
Yeah.
Changing jobs, try changing lovers, changing my furniture, change my bed covers. I changed my heart, but there's no chance, so turn the lights off. Where are you now when I miss you? You're sailing around in my peripheral. Where are you now? Where are you now? Where are you now?
Closing out the second semifinal is the Czech Republic's We Are Domi with Lights Off. We Are Domi won the Czech Republic's online selection. The band formed at the Leeds College of Music. And just this past week, they released a collaboration with Lake Malawi called High Speed Kissing. This was one of the first, if not, well, I'm not sure it was the first, because Bulgaria was just like, hello, here's everything. The Czech Republic was not too far behind in terms of announcing this. Mike, given that we've had this one for a while, how do you feel about this one?
This one also got a revamp, and the revamp of this reminds me of the song Rapture by IIO. I think that's how they pronounce their name. And this is also kind of like Romania, where it feels like it is the last song playing into the credits at the end of an episode of Queer as Folk, where like Brian is glowering from one of the balconies at Babylon, and there's just like all of this mood that is happening. It's like, all right, fine. And it just feels really dated, as that reference would indicate. It's dated to an era that is right in my sweet spot, so I'm kind of conflicted about this. Partly because We Are Domi was at, I think, all of the pre-parties, and the vocals at all the pre-parties were not great. The first couple of times, they were like trying to blame the sound engineers, which don't blame the techies. But if it's happening at every single pre-party, there's something else going on. I don't know if it's just that this song is a tough one to perform live, or what's going to happen with that. So that's a concern of mine. It's also reminding me a lot of Triana Park, which were Latvia's representatives in 2017. And I loved that song, and I believe they closed out their semifinal. They finished in last place. I think that was a crime. But yeah, this one, I think I like it, but I don't know how that's actually going to translate into if a general audience is going to like it and vote for it. I think it's really going to come down to how the vocals are during the actual performance.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, you share my exact same concern. This one I like a lot, but also I'm just like, okay, Bad vocal performance at one pre-party. Okay, cool. It was just like a weird in-ear monitor thing. These are volunteer events, and like you probably have like all of 5 seconds of like sound check time. Bad vocals at every pre-party. Oh no. The initial video we got of this was supposedly a live to tape performance where they seem to be able to perform it. So I'm just like, I don't know what the entire circumstances are here. And again, they're going to have 2 full weeks of rehearsals on site to just nail the sound component of this. Because like for me, this sounds like Churches. And I like Churches a lot. If/when Scotland ever declares independence and immediately sends things to Eurovision, they should talk to Churches. It's hitting a sweet spot of kind of electronic pop for me. But now that you've mentioned Triana Park, I'm like, oh no, this is Triana Park. And I'd forgotten that Triana Park was both last to perform and just like dead last in their semi. Where I'm just like, oh, this could completely fall flat.
Yeah. And coming right after Sweden's entry here. Tough spot for him. Yeah, I can see a lot of people sort of mentally checking out before they get ready to start voting now and just sort of prepping up whatever they have to do there. The video helps and hurts them because on the one hand, the video is, the video and fairly obvious tropes. On the other hand, hey, a modern tribute to the Apple as in the movie? Sure, because I was getting those vibes from that.
Oh, that's why I like this one so much.
Musical dystopia, bring it on. And The Matrix and everything else. And, certain other current films, every check bar, every dance beat all at once. So, just sort of like ear controls and things like that. It does a weird sort of disservice to them because you get a sense from that. It's sort of like, okay, they do that. And then you get the final 30 seconds where it's like, okay, it's one of these bands, just the dude with the thing and playing the guitar with the bow and the thing. Oh, okay, I got it. And I was looking up more about it. I was like, they were formed in Leeds, England? How did that happen?
Yeah.
So, they're for study or something like that. So, and, okay, sure. So, but, yeah, where are you in my peripheral line is like, Vision?
Yes.
or something else. And my other favorite one was change my furniture, change my bed covers. I mean, one hopes one does at least the bed covers every so often. My notes say, I do like the generic grooves. There's a neo-disco tautness. The bridge auto-tune works. I kind of like them, I guess is what I said. So your point about Churches, though, was very apt. Yeah, as soon as you said that, I'm like, okay, that's who they're trying to be. And yeah, Triana Park, yeah, that was sad. I think their fate is, I don't want to say sealed, but it's going to be hard.
Yeah, I think just because the fan base that gets really into this and watches all the pre-parties they can has now seen them faceplant multiple times. So that's part of the voters. The other thing that I'm like really scared of for this performance, I noticed in the revamp, there's that big section in the backing where it sounds like a bunch of like breakers being turned off. Where I'm just like, please don't pull a Vladana. Please.
Oh. Yeah.
Just like apologies, they are absolutely going to turn all the lights off in the arena. On the other hand, I like this one as a closer after a bunch of slower stuff. This is a nice upbeat number to end the night on.
That's true. Yes.
It's going to be the last thing that was playing. The chorus is very hooky. Even like that peripheral line, like initially my brain was getting hung up on it, but now I'm just like, no, this is great. Where are you now?
Looking at the second half of the semifinal, this really is the only song that I think could have closed it with the appropriate energy. Like the only thing that it could maybe trade spots with would be Ireland, but I don't think of That's Rich as being a closer.
I think the Czech Republic is doing great things with their process. Like, yes, they've had kind of some wobbles with last year, but I still respect what they sent. They're picking interesting stuff, and they're picking stuff that does not necessarily feel Eurovision specific, which I think is a great strategy.
I think I would enjoy this song outside of the Eurovision context. I just don't think I would have necessarily been exposed to it without Eurovision. So I think it's successful in that regard. And if it's able to get through, like, man, the second semifinal is really...
Yeah, like that's the other thing, is that the second semifinal is just wild. There are so many of these things that are on the bubble for various reasons, where it's just the correct combo of circumstances.
I think Bree said last week that the only one that's not on the bubble is Sweden. And
yeah, it's
I
Sweden
agree
and
with
9
that.
other things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see what everyone's mood will be, especially as the end of the second semifinal. It's sort of like, okay. Lots of deep breaths. And then what will people start thinking with whatever the intermission stuff is?
They've been starting to drop what the first semifinals interval acts are. We don't know what the second semifinal is, which in fairness, what do you pair with these?
And now a solo acoustic performance from, so bring in Andrea Bocelli. Why not?
There we go. Yeah. Or, I don't know, they could just pull a San Remo and pass a vocoder around and noodle around with that for 30 minutes or however. Ben's favorite. So.
Yes,
I like the idea of it turning into just an Andy Kaufman routine at this point, just completely just destroying and falling apart. And then they're like, oh, wedding's over.
it's all I want.
Oh, dear. Why are you making me tremble so? This is supposed to be a happy time.
First semifinal is going to be awesome. Second semifinal is... It's going to be weird. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm deeply looking forward to watching this semifinal just because the combination of things are, I think, just the wonderful set of circumstances that has given us these 18 entries in this semifinal together next to one another.
Yeah, the producers had their work cut out for them, so I hope it pays off the way that they're hoping it pays off.
And a certain Mr. Sand is going to kick him back somewhere going like, glad I don't have to deal with that. Let us hope that wheat is sorted from chaff appropriately. We'll need it when it comes time for the final itself.
Ned, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation.
Yeah, pleasure as always. It's great to be back. So it's always fun to think about this and talk about this every time.
Awesome. Is there anything that you'd like us to point our listeners toward?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter as ever, Ned Raggett, 2 G's, 2 T's, all too easily found, as I like to say. There is my Patreon at Ned Raggett as well, where I post weekly music thoughts when I can, along with various other subscriber-only pieces and other links. And as always, there's my other podcast, which has nothing to do with music, at least directly, and that is on J.R.R. Tolkien, called By-The-Bywater. Join Jared and Oriana and I if you have any interest in the subject. We just talked about the Ralph Bakshi adaptation of Lord of the Rings, and we're going to be talking about Evil tomorrow. So now I really have to gear shift after thinking about music all day. So.
Well, thank you so much. We will have links to all of those in our show notes. And that is going to do it for this episode of the Euro What. Thanks for listening. The Euro What podcast is hosted by Mike McComb, that's me, and Ben Smith.
That's me. You can follow the Euro What on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcast app of your choice. Show notes and links to our Eurovision 2022 review series are in the description of this episode and on our website at eurowhat.com.
We just finished our Eurovision semifinal coverage, but the semis are just getting started on the American Song Contest. Subscribe to our bonus podcast, Just Asking Questions, at patreon.com/Eurowhat.
Next time on the Euro What, NPR's Glenn Weldon will be joining us to talk about the entries from the Big Five countries: France, Germany, Spain, United Kingdom, and our host country, Italy.